Shut up and sit down.
This is the way. Hello, my friends. I am not Din Djarin the Mandalorian. I am Simon, your cosplay nerd. Welcome to part 3, where by now I've fabricated a ton of armor parts and fancy leather pieces, but I had nothing to attach them to. See how I solved that problem and completed my Mandalorian cosplay armor. So first up, I had to level up my cosplay game and buy a mannequin. I was getting to the limits of how much I could try on this stuff myself while still working on it. A mannequin was the logical next step. Fortunately, they don't cost a fortune. They have them on Amazon for pretty reasonable prices. Now at the time, the only references I had to go by for what the Mandalorian was wearing under his armor were from the TV show, from paused images. I didn't really have many reference photos to work from, so I didn't have much of a clue as to what was under that armor. I opted to buy a brown sweatshirt that was tight enough that it wouldn't be too baggy and have the armor pieces sagging when I wore them, and some dark olive green sweatpants, again that were just not too baggy but would allow free movement when I was wearing them. For the hands, I chose to buy some running gloves that have rubberized fingers so that you can actually use a cell phone and grip things when you're wearing them, and I just painted the ends of the fingers to match the look of the show. To attach the armor pieces to the underneath clothing layer, the way I've done that in the past is literally to hand sew strips of velcro to the clothing and then glue that velcro to the armor pieces. And that works very well, but it's super time intensive. Just before I was about to start that labor of love, I suddenly remembered that I had the E6000 glue, and I wondered if that would be strong enough to hold the Velcro onto the clothing. I was a little skeptical, and you probably are too, but I figured, hey, why not? I'll give it a shot. I have to say, it was awesome. I've been wearing this same armor for about 6 months now, and it hangs together great. I've not had a single piece of the Velcro come away from the underlying clothing. That E6000 glue has been rock solid. Now, one of the challenges I faced was that while the mannequin was a similar height to me, maybe an inch or so taller, it was a lot thinner around the shoulders. So when I came to actually try on the armor pieces, I found that the shoulder pauldrons actually didn't fit properly. They wouldn't go over my shoulders. So the fix for that was pretty simple. I just took a small strip of EVA foam, glued it to the inside of the armor pieces, and they provided just enough of a buffer to allow those armor pieces to adhere properly to the Velcro on the clothing. So, with the Velcro in place on all of the armor pieces, I gave things a try, and I was really impressed with how the armor looked when I put it on. I made some small adjustments to things, primarily moving the chest piece higher because it was hanging a little bit low, but that's pretty easy. I just glued another couple of small strips of Velcro in place, no problem. The final piece of the puzzle was the cloak, and it was there that I got really lucky. I buy all of my fabric from my local Joann's store, and I was down there looking in all of the thick drapery type fabric that was really expensive, and then on a whim I decided to check out the offcuts bin, and they had a 3-yard long, perfect looking piece of fabric that was not only weighty enough that it would hang well, but also relatively lightweight so that it wouldn't choke me in the middle of the summer. Again, I was working from some pretty poor reference photos and I couldn't see how the cloak really laid, so I decided to actually split mine into 2 pieces. I had the long piece that runs down the Mandalorian's back, the primary piece of the cloak, that has 2 long straps that come underneath the armor and attach via Velcro to my chest plate. Then I cut another piece that's more like a traditional scarf. It runs around my neck, it tucks in under the armor piece, and it also tucks in under the helmet at the back and under the helmet at the front, just to disguise any glimpse of the real me underneath. I had another thought with this as well. I really didn't want to spend a ton of time stitching that cloak because it was very thick material, and I was worried about the stitches being visible and just ruining the effect. So what I did was I used barge cement to paint along the edge of all of the seams, literally just waited 10 minutes for that barge cement to cure and folded it over. And if you haven't heard me evangelize barge cement yet, go and watch part number 2 where I talk about how I fabricated my right boot armor using that material. So by then, I had all of the armor pieces, all of the leather belts and straps, I had the underlying tunic and the underlying sweatpants, I had everything I needed along with the cloak. It was time to try this all out, take it for a spin in my backyard. I was actually super happy with that test drive. As I was walking around my yard posing for photos to test out this Mandalorian armor, I had a bunch of motorists driving past my house, honking their horns and waving as they saw me in full costume. It was pretty awesome. But cosplay is always a journey and not a destination, and therefore there's a lot that I'm going to be doing to improve this armor over time, ready for when we can finally get back to Comic-Cons again. One thing that I could not resist doing though was building Baby Yoda, the child, so that the Mandalorian didn't get too lonely stuck here in lockdown. So next time on Cosplay Nerd, I will be showing you how I built the child, the asset, Baby Yoda himself. Until then, I am Simon, your cosplay nerd. Peace out, my friends, and this is the way.
Shut up and sit down.